and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be an exciting one for me anyway, but before I start I would just say it's going to be a long one, so if you want to get settled in, get yourself a nice hot beverage, a warm caffeinated drink, and get yourself just relax and settle in because it's going to be a long one. This video is going to be about our trip to Southeast Asia. We decided to spend 3 weeks exploring Indonesia in particular, stopping off in Singapore each way, going to East Java, Bali, the Gili Islands, and this particular video is going to focus on that first week in Indonesia. We decided to do a kind of guided tour of East Java. In terms of the gear side of things, I was trying to keep it very lightweight and versatile, packing all of my clothes, toiletries, camera gear into just 2 bags, the 31 litre Wandered Provoke backpack and my 3 litre Peak Design sling. So with that in mind, it was trying to be as compact and as versatile as possible. Camera wise, I went for the Fujifilm X-T4, which is a great hybrid photo camera, weather resistant, and I know it really well. That paired with the 18-55 zoom lens is a great travel option, just gives you lots of width and also a bit of telephoto reach, optically stabilized, great for video, and I don't mind it getting banged up a bit as it's already fairly banged up by myself. I then tried to bring another prime with me, so I went for, again, very lightweight and small in the 27mm 2.8 pancake lens from Fujifilm. Again, it's very small and compact as you can see, so paired with the X-T4, it's a great lightweight combo. It's also weather resistant as well, so if there's any rain, bad weather, take it out without really worrying too much. My girlfriend Val also was traveling with a camera of her own with the Fujifilm X-T20, and she chose to bring with her the communal 23mm f2 lens, which I'm a massive fan of. It's a great lightweight prime lens, weather resistant, f2 for a bit of extra light, and was an option as well if I needed it. My X-T4, the 18-55 and the 27mm paired with a GoPro Hero 10 as well. So that was the camera and gear setup for this trip. I'll talk all the way through the video about why I was using certain lenses at certain times. I'll go into a bit more detail later on, but for now, let's get to the video. Landing into Singapore for a quick layover and stepping into Asia for the first time was incredibly exciting.
It's named after the airport.
Singapore Changi is a beautiful airport and as lovely as they come, and I could have spent hours just exploring this and just sitting in the peacefulness, which is hard to say about an airport normally, but it was an absolute pleasure to spend time here. Very quickly I found out that I was glad to have taken the 18-55mm with me on this trip. The scale of this waterfall and this whole area of the Changi terminal is hard to capture with a 27mm field of view.
Camera.
Yeah.
That we're testing out and figuring out how to use, and making it quite difficult.
Val also picked up this cute waterproof disposable camera for me as a birthday present, as we were planning to do kind of lots of snorkeling and underwater activities later on in the trip, and it was a joy to use, really fun. And I will probably do a separate video on a couple of the fun cameras we used on this trip. But yeah, it was a great little camera to carry around and try capture those memorable moments, I suppose. I also think this is my first time ever using a film camera, and I could do without getting hooked into that. Surabaya was an incredibly lovely and unexpected part of this trip. This was supposed to be just a few days to relax, unwind, acclimatise to the different time zone, and honestly just take it easy and decompress from the busyness of life. What we got was the warmest and friendliest of welcomes, in particular from the hotel staff itself. And none of this is an ad, by the way, but they were just really lovely. The hotel itself was a great place to stay for the 3 or 4 days we did. hotel itself turned out to be a leafy, green, very nature-infused, aesthetically pleasing place, and unexpectedly became a really great place to get a couple of reps under our belt photography-wise. I was really grateful actually for the opportunity just to spend a couple of days relaxed and getting into the photography swing of things before going to the more photocentric parts of this trip. Unbeknownst to ourselves as well, we'd arrived days before Indonesian Independence Day. Pure chance, we didn't plan it. But it made the kind of stay here that much more special. All the decorations, as you'll see throughout this video, all the red and white banners all over the place, made everywhere really beautiful and pleasing, and an energy around that we weren't really expecting. From the official Independence Day activities themselves to just the fun games in which we did terribly, the staff were incredibly encouraging and made us get involved at all times, and we were really grateful, and it was just a really nice place to stay, and yeah, they were lovely.
We will take a picture.
Yeah.
My friend will keep some gift for you.
There we go.
Red and white.
Nice. All of the celebrations culminated in what can only be described as the weirdest football game I've ever watched. A clash between the hotel staff and the hotel management and owners. Yeah, I mean, I can try and describe it. It's a weird mix of five-a-side, Halloween costumes, and FIFA Street. That's the best I can do, but honestly, just watch it because it was mental. Leaving Surabaya with our hearts full, we headed off to what was the main reason for us being in East Java. Full disclaimer here though, we fully believed that we had booked a big group tour full of like 12 to 15 people on a big bus, and it was going to be fairly uncomfortable. But we thought we were going for the sort of budget option, trying to keep everything as low cost as we could. What happened was quite the opposite. We'd apparently booked a private tour with a private driver and a guide in a car. So while we were incredibly grateful to be in this lovely air-conditioned, comfortable Jeep for the next 3 or 4 days with the amount of driving we had planned, it wasn't the plan. And we usually don't travel this well. So yeah, that was a lovely, unexpected surprise. A solid 6 hours of driving later, we arrived in the mountainous area of Bromo. With a sunrise hike up Mount Bromo, an active volcano on the cards for tomorrow, we took a few hours exploring the local mountainous area and take in the beautiful scenery. The light, landscape and subjects were incredibly photogenic, as you can see, and I thoroughly enjoyed just exploring it. Armed with the 27mm on the front of my X-T4, I really enjoyed the field of view that gave me, the light compression, the very close to my real eye view, and I didn't feel it was too tight at any point, which was great. Particular favourites from this couple of hours of exploring was this garage itself and this evacuation route snap, because I think it's a nice bit of context to the area you're in. With sunset approaching, our tour guide, the wonderful Nano, suggested that we head up to, I'm going to try and get this right, Mount Penanjakan viewpoint for sunset to try and capture the surrounding area, as it should be quiet at that time of day. This area is where on the itinerary we were supposed to hike up the following morning to get a beautiful view of the volcanic craters such in the volcanoes and the mountain range and the valley floor. But going up at this time of day, I mean, it's quite a lot less quiet, and for photography I'm always happy to go at different times, early or late, to avoid crowds. Do you like it? As we headed up, I changed from the 27mm to the 18-55, just knowing that we would have quite a lot of big grand vistas and wanting to make sure I had the width to capture it. And also I enjoy using the telephoto range of the 55 to isolate parts of a subject, so whether that's mountain peaks to create minimal layers, or just capturing small snapshots of landscape. I thought it would be a bit more versatile in this context.
You having fun, Val?
I really enjoyed capturing the wide grand vistas such as this image of everything, but also some of the minimal compositions really stood out to me, really isolating some of the layers, the textures, and the sunset light just helping out beautifully. I don't ever really find a golden hour I can get the colours right, so switching sometimes to black and white like I've done in this image I think really helps elevate the textures inside of things, and some people might think that's sacrilege at golden hour, but I just really like the minimalism of this. and the 18-55 really performed well. I usually shoot with a 1/8 Pro mist filter on the front like on this occasion, and even with that it's performing really well, nice and sharp, and I really can't complain, especially for the lightweight and small size of the lens. You push yourself to try and get some interesting compositions, but then sometimes you look at a mountain range like this dead on, like straight on, and some of the obvious compositions are the best like this, which I'm sure have been taken thousands of times, but maybe they have for a reason. We were really fortunate with this evening and the light, and I'm so glad we went up here at the sunset hour, at golden hour, where there was no crowds, because it felt quite untouched in a sense. In any other country in the Western world, this would be the most beautiful thing you'd ever see, and the fact that we kind of had it to ourselves was mind-blowing, and it made it that bit more special to enjoy. And again, I've got to thank Nano for suggesting going up that evening, because it was so unbelievably worth it. A 2:30 a.m. alarm later, yes, 2:30 a.m. we jumped into the back of this monster truck of a Jeep to take us across the caldera, the sandy duny desert below in the valley, with the idea of heading up to where we'd been the night before, which was the original plan. Unfortunately, everyone else had the similar idea, and as Nano told us the day before, his friends had waited about 3 or 4 hours to get to the top where we had been the night before, and took another 3 or 4 hours to get down in said Jeep. So his suggestion was fairly simple. He suggested we head up to the crater, Mount Bromo's crater itself, to watch sunrise from there, as it would be a lot less crowded. Yeah, we went with that plan. What that did mean though is that we had a bit of time to spare that early in the morning, so we stopped off for probably the worst but most necessary coffee of my life. Oh, it's so dark, it's really struggling to focus on you. I chose on this occasion to keep the 18-55mm lens on the front of the camera, much the same as the reasons of the night before: the extra width, the extra telephoto reach. The image stabilization on the lens would help for low light photography and for video, and I didn't mind it again getting a bit dusty because it's already in bits. Unfortunately, at some point early on in this hike up, I must have knocked off on the lens on this little button here, which you can switch the optical stabilization on or off. I must have knocked it off without realizing, so there's a lot of the footage is a lot shakier than I would have liked, and also didn't help with getting images in the dark. With the amount of light we had first thing in the morning, and the fact the lens's widest aperture is 2.8, it made for getting sharp images with low shutter speeds quite hard to try and keep the ISO down, and not having the image stabilization didn't help that either. And it was frustrating to realize that later on, but look, we still got a few and I was very happy with them. Oh, no, that's all right. How are you doing now? Are you good?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Good. And now we go up. There's a volcano behind you, you know that?
I don't know that.
With the help of Nano guiding us around the crater to some mostly safe spots, we got to enjoy the sunrise and quite simply incredible views and location. As the sun rose, more people had climbed the short way up from the valley floor to the crater, maybe deciding to do similar as we did and avoid the crowds. And the dusty air filled with the early light created this beautiful atmospheric haze that lent itself to these images really well, and I guess made it look a bit more cinematic, or atmospheric. Particularly using the more telephoto end of the 18 to 55 again allowed me to isolate some of the hikers along the ridge in these images, alongside the light being split by the ridge, and it all adds up some images that I'm really proud of, and I think are just show the scale of the place, and they're to be honest just quite cool. And yeah, as the sun rose, we really got a glimpse of the volcano we were standing beside all night. Heading down the volcano, Val, bless her, really likes horses and saw that you could get a horse ride down the valley. And so, without really my choosing, I was on a horse. Little did we know that the whole area of the valley becomes this massive market, this Wild West desert area. And it was so strange. As we got off the horses and took in the scenery, this was one of the times I was most grateful for the 18mm end of things. Like I said, the wide angle, the light and dusty atmosphere paired so well with some of the characters about the horses. It created these really cool images. I'm trying to, these real gritty, hard, striking images, I think is the best way to describe them. And they're somewhat like almost environmental portraits in a sense, and I love the scale and the context and the light. It all adds to these, you know? There's a lot of energy, I think, in these, and yeah, I think they're quite striking. Incredibly sleep deprived, the whole morning in this makeshift mountain market began to feel like a bit of a fever dream as we made our way around and took it all in. A mixture of Mad Max and Lord of the Rings is probably the most accurate way to describe it. The sea of monster trucks and people and dust and haze and horses. Just a very, very surreal environment to find yourself in. Some of these images are really cool, and particularly like some of these ones with the volcano in the background with the men and their horses. This guy between these two trucks on his horse was a very quick snap. Could have been sharper, could have been better composed, but I love the moment of it. And I'm not sure if I prefer it in black and white or colour, but it's a really striking image and one of my favourites actually from the entire trip in general. And I remember at the time thinking this was a good one, you know? Yeah, some of these images were some of the best I think I've ever produced, and it felt kind of fitting to do it on the first camera and first lens that I'd ever bought as well, and that I knew so well. I think it's also another way of showing that it's not always the lens that makes a good image or the camera, and I can see the improvement in myself in the past 3 or 4 years. But yeah, this is a really cool 24 hours.
That was such an unflattering time.
Tumpak Sewu is a valley full of hundreds and hundreds of spectacular waterfalls. Another early start to avoid the masses was on order, and Nano had warned us that we were going to get fairly soaked today. We'd actually come down to this area the night before, after we'd driven about 6 hours from Bromo to there, to have a look at it that evening, and we thought about going down, but then it started to rain fairly heavily, and this area is prone to mudslides, so we thought it best not to. With the fact we were going to get fairly wet in mind, I elected to take the 23mm f2 from Val, as she wasn't going to take her X-T20 with her for fear of it getting soaked, of course, and I thought that having the extra width would be a bit more versatile than the 27mm f2.8 paired with my X-T4. So that's what I did, and I brought the GoPro along for good measure as well, being fairly waterproof.
This is new, and that's how they used to go down the...
Wow. Shit.
The scale of this waterfall is quite hard to capture. It's just massive and towers over you. Spray gets you from miles away. The valley itself is stunning, and it was a really cool place to spend some time. As the main waterfall, as you saw, was incredibly stunning to see. We had really good fun just climbing up through the valley, through waterfalls. I mean, you could see in itself, this was madness, and we couldn't believe that we were actually climbing up through the waterfalls and around them, and that's where the paths and railings were built. You never get this in Europe or the West, I suppose, and the safety regulations would never allow it, but it was really fun. The way the trees grew around in this valley, the light coming down through the top, the energy of the water created some really fun images, I think. And yeah, we got absolutely soaked as well. As well as some of these images of the waterfall, I'm really happy with some of the portraits I've been getting of Val on this trip, and it's something I wanted to get better at, is taking portraits of people. So thanks Val for continuously being in front of the camera for me and being patient and just being as lovely and beautiful as ever. After Tumpak Sewu, we had quite a decent drive ahead of us to our final sort of day of the tour, with the original plan being to climb up another volcanic crater and mountain at sunrise the following morning. On the way we stopped off for just a really funny lunch in this restaurant that had a lot of fish, and we had a lot of fun feeding the fish. It's quite silly and we got a good kick out of it unexpectedly.
Why are you all so silly? That is so funny.
And also as sunset set in as such, we stopped off by this rice paddy field because we were just blown away by the colours, and we pulled over, and it was really worth the 20 minutes or so of a break by the road.
Yeah.
The final day of our tour was planned to hike up this mountain called Mount Ijen, which is another volcanic mountain famous for its blue natural flame caused by the gas is released, and also the fact it's incredibly toxic. So to climb up this mountain, you are supposed to wear gas masks. You're supposed to have gas masks. Why can't I say that? You're supposed to have gas masks on the entire time. So yeah, it's a very poisonous, toxic mountain. Unfortunately, when we'd arrived in Indonesia, they'd actually closed it just weeks previously. The mountain at the time of writing and the time we came was closed due to the toxicity levels being too high. But since then, I believe the mountain's reopened, so you can visit Mount Ijen, but on our particular trip, it unfortunately wasn't possible. What we did do instead though was visit a place called Banyuwangi, which is a local village, and inside that there is a traditional village still kept and still active as the way it would have been 100, 200 years ago. It hasn't embraced sort of modern living. And that was really special, and it was really enjoyable to walk around and see the village itself. But the highlight was absolutely being invited in to one of the elders' homes, a lady known as Ba Ning, who is over 8 years old, we're led to believe. No one remembers her real name. Ba Ning in Javanese essentially means Grandma Ning, and no one in the village, nor herself, no longer remembers her real name, so she is known as Ning. Ning was an incredibly beautiful lady, inspiring, lovely, kind, friendly, warm, all of these lovely adjectives to describe her, because she welcomed us into her home with open arms, showed us around, showed us where she slept, eat, cooked. Our guide and Nano each told us about their culture, her culture, and everything they knew about herself, which was just incredibly generous and genuine, I think, of her. She was really excited to welcome us in, and we didn't feel like tourists kind of coming into the zoo to look at like a person, or it felt all very genuine, and we tried to be as respectful as we could, essentially make sure that we were welcome, and by all accounts from her, we really were. And as I mentioned before, trying to focus on my environmental portraits and portraits of Val and people, this was an incredible experience to get to take someone's photo, and felt like we were capturing something really important. She showed us a way that she brushes her teeth, which I believe is using a bitter paste in leaves, kind of I think similar to tobacco, that sort of sense, to brush their teeth or like clean their teeth. And it smelled terrible, and Val was lucky enough to try it. But it led to these series of images that I'm not going to lie, I'm really proud of, and I'm just going to let it roll because it's a really wholesome moment, I think.
Not good?
No.
There's like
In particular, from this set, there's this image of her on her own and with some accidental camera shake. While the camera shake wasn't necessary, I think it actually captures the energy and chaos of this interaction, and I'm really proud of it from a portrait perspective. The lighting was quite difficult, and I think I managed to capture the moment really well. And these might be the images I'm happiest of this one interaction, because it felt like it meant something. It goes without saying, but, and I'm sure she won't see this, but massive thanks to Ba Ning. You were very lovely, very kind, and it was an honour to get to see where you lived and meet you as a person. We ended the day and the sort of tour itself with a trip to a local coffee roaster, a traditional coffee roaster should I say, in Banyuwangi. Indonesia has a rich tradition of growing and roasting their own coffee, and it's drank all around the world. So this was a really cool experience as someone who is into coffee as such, and it was really nice to get to experience it, roast our own coffee, grind our own coffee, and then drink said coffee. Yeah, tastes like coffee. While this wasn't maybe the most photocentric location, the light was hard, it was dark, and we were kind of doing an activity, so I didn't have as much time to take the camera out and take images because I was doing the roasting and grinding. And in particular, I enjoyed this image of the local barista roaster pouring and making the coffee for us with the coffee we just ground. I think the focus is a bit off on it, but I like it as a whole, and yeah, pretty pleased with it. Ultimately, that was the end of our tour with Nano and the couple of days around East Java. At the end of the tour, Nano drove us to the ferry to head towards Bali. I'll link below Nano's own social media page, and if you want to get in contact with him about tours, feel free to do so down below. Yeah, looking back on this trip, I took some images that I'm incredibly proud of, and I guess you could definitely consider to be portfolio shots and some of my favourite photography memories and moments, and ultimately like some memories that will stick with me forever. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. We've got more videos to come from the rest of this trip to Bali, the Gili Islands and around Singapore as well. So if you fancy having a look at those, subscribe to the channel, feel free to like the video, share it. Please comment down below on any of your thoughts on any of the images about the video. I'd love to hear every thought, feeling, opinion you have, good or bad. As always, thank you so much for spending the time here with me on YouTube, taking the time out of your day to watch these videos. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.